Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mosaic Podcast. I don't know what happens, but every time I sit down to do one of these, I just get so excited because the people that I'm meeting, and I'm going to be meeting Michelle almost along with you. We've had one conversation before this, but it's not somebody that I know. But when I heard her story, when I read about her, when I heard a couple comments that she made, a couple of things that happened to her, it just moved me deeply. And so I think what I love most about these podcasts is the ability of me being able to bring to those of you who come regularly and listen to the show, people that you might never hear of before, and introducing you to not only people, but to a way of life that is so rich and so different. Because in 1 minute, everything in life can change. And the way we relate to those changes really determines a lot about the way we live our life and what we allow those changes to do for us or not do for us. You're going to understand it a little bit better when I read you the story. And so I want to get into it. So let me read you my introductory comments on Michelle. Michelle Kuei?
Yes.
Am I saying it correctly? I didn't even ask.
You did.
Okay. Michelle Kuei is a certified life coach who helps negative self-talkers to discover inner strength and beauty by overcoming fear of judgment, of their own judgments, of other people's judgments. And you're going to understand that even better when you hear her story. Her story is a story of realizing, as she says, flaws are what make us human. Accepting our flaws and forgiving ourselves for our mistakes and reconciling those conflicting parts of ourselves is crucial to our health and happiness. Michelle was permanently disabled as a result of a car accident when she was 11 years old. Growing up with this physical disability made her play small all her life. She didn't even like pictures taken of her because she felt ashamed of her body. And she couldn't look into the mirror and love herself the way she thought she should. So when she now stands before you and says, I'm going to help you deal with negative self-talk, this is something you can be sure of that Michelle's walked through and can give you not just words, but experience. She's the author of a new memoir, Perfectly Normal, an immigrant's story of making it in America. Michelle was born in Taiwan and grew up in New York, but today she lives in Los Angeles with a short-haired brown tabby cat named Buster. To learn more about her, I would love you to go to her website, elevatelifecoaching.org. Without further ado, Michelle, welcome to the Mosaic Podcast. It's an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Danny. It's been an honor to be on your podcast and also just to getting to know you. And I think you mentioned that, we had a conversation. It was the most transformative conversation that I ever had.
Wow. Okay. No pressure then for this. Okay. Maybe we should have recorded that and put that up. Well, let's bypass what normal questions about. What about it was so transformative for you? What did you see in there?
And I think it really ties back to the self-negative talk quite a lot. So I think this is a perfect real example for the listener to listen for the judgment and how we're judging ourselves and how we're judging others through even just a conversation. So when you first reached out to me, I didn't know who you were. I didn't know, what intention does this guy want, except reaching out to me, a stranger. Like we bumped into someone on the street and someone made a comment about us. And I took it personal initially. I took it as, wow, this guy doesn't know me. And yet he's pointing out the fact that my message is not clear. How does he know that message is clear or not? How much does he know about me besides just the 2 minutes that we interacted through a text?
Yeah.
And we carry that text into a conversation, a real-time meeting, right, face to face, and I start to pick up your body language, your facial expression, the tone of voice, in addition to what was being said.
Yeah.
And what I picked up from that conversation was it gave me a reflection of what type of message am I sending out to the audience, and what type of message am I sending when I talk about things. Am I being on a genuine place? Am I being authentic? Is it in alignment with who I am? So it gave me a lot of reflection time to think about who am I really, and what is it about my value, and how am I showing up on all the social media posts I'm creating, on all the video I'm shooting, on all the podcasts I'm doing. How is it showing up for me in terms of authenticity? And
Fabulous.
I remember sharing that, authenticity is something that I value a lot. In fact, authenticity to me is whether or not we're being honest to ourselves, and whether or not we're honest to others. And it's about how we show up in the world. And if I'm being honest to myself and truly honor and live in that authenticity, it would require me to really focus on what is it that I'm fearing, what is it that I'm holding back, what is it it's blocking me from showing up and convey that message to others.
Yeah.
So I did some thinking, and I had an aha moment because someone else within that time, within that 7 days of time period, someone else came into a conversation with me, and he pointed out that, Michelle, you wrote a book, which is great. You had a message, and the message was about your journey, how you went from being disabled and you were playing small to where you are now, and you are a life coach, you're helping others, but you're not stepping into your true being. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, this is something that I want to offer you. This is what I'm hearing from the story you share. And he pointed out that what I've gone through is a journey of the past, and where I am now is leading to the future.
Yeah.
So I want it to be normal. I want to fit in. I want to be perfectly normal. And depending on how we define normal, that's another discussion, right? So how we define normal. I became normal. I can do everything that everyone else does. But here I am. I am above normal. I am beyond normal. I am extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that authenticity is being extraordinary where I am now.
Yeah. So I love, first of all, I love your honesty. I love just what a few conversations does to change conversation, right? Someone sent me an email because you're not the only one I just have this weird thing that happens inside me where I feel people, and I know them all of about 18 seconds, and I'll say stuff to them that I have no right to say to them. And they sent me something from a spiritual teacher who said, my words are not what is important. I say I can say things that will outrage you or confuse you, because the words are not what I'm really about. What's really about is the vibration that we're trying to have between us. And it's the spaces between the words which actually bring you to a place where you start to understand yourself better. And it's not exactly what I do, but in the work that I do with people in general, I really just try and occupy their mind. Most of the times it's not in conflict. With you, we had, I loved, you stood up to me and you said, I just don't agree with that at all. And I'm going to put that over there. And then as we started, then after our conversation, you said, hold it, maybe I won't throw it away quite as, but part of what happens is when the mind becomes occupied, because we're all so similar, that we all want to appear that we're okay, and what I saw in you is you had this beautiful opportunity to take a terrible situation that happened to you and make it the most beautiful situation by saying, there's nothing about me that when you see me standing on the street, I'm a beautiful woman, but when you see what happened to my body, you can't relate to what I'm going through, so I'm different than you are. but all of us are different. Just because you hide your differences inside, someone else hides their differences inside, and you walk with them. I have a big tummy, so I know what that's like. I walk with my difference right in front of me. But that doesn't mean we don't connect with each other. That doesn't mean we. And the place that I love seeing you and hearing you walk into is, how does the story of what's happened to you not stay in the past, but integrate itself into a present story, where you say to people, look, if I can get rid of my self-doubt, if I can get rid of my self-loathing, if I can get rid of my pain that I look at and my anger and my frustration of why did this happen to me, and I can walk forward in a positive direction and help other people do it, you surely can too. And that's the hero's journey. And that's what I was so intrigued with you, because I saw you doing that, but not necessarily standing up and doing that in the way that it felt like your soul wanted to do it. So I'm thrilled. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
What did your parents do?
Well, my parents retired right now, but in the past, when we were in Taiwan, we were living in Taiwan, my dad used to belong to the military. So in Taiwan, there's military training school, their school, right? And people go to be trained as a soldier, lieutenant, anything. So he was in the military. He was a lieutenant. And after his service at the military, he went to high school and became a teacher who teaches military skills. And as long as I remember, he's always, dressed up in uniform, and he's sitting behind the desk and he talks to students. So he's very, considered as what they call a white collar kind of guy.
Right.
And he's very loving, very caring. And my mom, when we were little, she was a household wife, so she didn't have anything, any job at all. She basically just took care of us when we were at home.
Yeah. And so, of those two, who did you relate to more? Who did you want to please more?
I would say I want to please my mom more. Because she actually played a really big role in my life, my journey, and she was always there. She was actually holding my hand at the time where I didn't want to use crutches.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use the crutches because I didn't want to look different. Yeah. I want to, be the very least, look like I can walk just like every other people, wow. Every other person. So for a long time, and by not using the crutches, I was actually causing a lot of pressure on my back. Yeah, so my back always hurt. So I end up using my mom as a crutch. Wow. So everywhere I go, she would go with me. We went to visit different countries. We went to shopping. We went to all these different places. I was always with my mom, holding her hand, because she's my crutch.
And so as your crutch and as your mom holding your hand, was she like just this extremely positive, you can do this, Michelle, you can, like, I'm here for you? Or did she sometimes get frustrated and have negative thoughts? Like I'm sort of, when the thought process to help other people in a certain direction comes in place, it's mainly because it's a thought process we want to have with ourselves. So how much of an influence in positivity was she to you? I know she certainly supported you and was there for you, but how was her way of dealing with it? Was she able to remain positive? Did she break down in quiet when you couldn't see her? Because that's heartbreaking to have your child hit by a car or have an accident and lose the use of their legs.
I'm sure she had those moments where she's hiding and crying and thinking about, how, playing a lot of guilt. It's about the neglect of your child, of your loved one. I'm sure she's done that. But to the best of my knowledge, I've never saw her crying in front of me. I caught her, becoming teary when I first came out of the surgery room after my
Of
car
course.
accident. She became teary, but after that, she pretty much held herself up, and she was there to support me. I never saw her being, very negative or being angry with anyone. She get frustrated, but she doesn't take it out. She doesn't act it out.
Yeah.
And I think most of the time she's operating on that level of energy where she's talking, worrying about my future, worrying about, how am I going to support myself, and what should I be doing in order to, make a living. So she was very concerned about my overall well-being rather than thinking about herself.
Yeah. So is that the first example you saw in your life of someone who was that selfless?
Yes. So when it comes to compassion, I always think about that. That's a true reflection of my mom. My mom is a very compassionate person. She cries almost to everything. She would sit in front of the TV and there's something pretty sad and dramatic and she would cry. And I think that's a great quality for someone who has compassion. It's
Yeah.
being able to relate to others and to think about and putting others first. And in this case, it's my mom. So she put me first, and she's always been putting me first. Even now, my parents live with me. So every night when I come home, there's meals ready to go on the table, and she's always asking me, "Hey, are you dressing enough? It's cold outside. Put on the jacket. You should wear a
Right.
mask when you go out. Don't get yourself infected." Things like that. She's still putting me first before
Yeah.
anyone else. And I think I oftentimes feel that, I'm kind of guilty in terms of the love that I get from my mom. Because my sibling, I have a brother and a sister. I feel I'm getting most of the attention because of the accident, because of what had
Yeah.
happened to me. And I'm stripping their right to the love of my mom.
Yeah. So how do you resolve that?
Well, I I see it. I used to do it by anger.
Hmm.
I feel I am entitled. I am here because this has happened to me. So of course, I told my sister to get things for me when I'm not able to walk. I got angry with my brother. I showed up as anger in the past. And how do I resolve it was at one point when this whole mindset start to shift, when that thinking start to shift, I realized that they're my sibling and they deserve just as much love as I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm taking away love from our mom from them, then I need to love them more.
Good. Good. So you need to be a conduit for your mom's love to flow through. Are you the oldest? Where do you place in the family?
I'm the middle child.
Middle child.
Can you tell the weirdness?
That's right.
Middle
That's
child.
right. So I would really like, if we can, to go to that moment where the car accident happened. What was life like before that?
I was a very normal, typical, happy kid in school. Like all the kids that we see in elementary school, they go to school, they complain about their homework, they complain that they have to wake up in the morning and go to school. They wish that summer break is the whole entire year.
Right.
I felt, and I remember I was always very on top of things. I was very organized. So I created like my timetable of all the classes I have to take. And I make sure I do my homework on time so I can get rid of it. So I have more time to play.
Totally. So the anger that you spoke about of, being entitled after the accident, was that present also before the accident?
Not as much.
Not as
It
much.
was because we had three children in the household. So I grew up learning that, what's on the table needs to be shared. And that was the mindset that I have. Whatever is there, we need to share, and we share equally to all the siblings. And I don't get anything more than they do.
Okay.
That's how we were taught. And being my dad being in the military, so you can imagine
Right. Right.
that's how we were taught. You don't
You
get more than what you
you had
deserve.
your rations. Everything was right.
Yes, everything is rationed.
I got it. And so, and yet I hear you speak, and pardon me if I'm doing the same thing I did in our first conversation, but I hear you speak about this person that has everything, had everything, you know, you had your work done, you had it all done on time, you handed it in, sort of in a very controlled, you controlled your environment to a certain extent
Yeah.
to make it work for you.
Mhm.
Um, what happened when you no longer had that control and the accident happened? What happened to that part of you?
I think it was hidden. It didn't disappear. It was still there. But what happened during the accident was it created such a chaos. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I put away that control. I put away that skills that I had, that love and understanding to share, to ration.
Yeah.
I put that away because there's something more traumatic. There's something, it's a crisis that I have to deal with in
Yeah.
all these chaos. Because suddenly I lost my control to life. I lost my control to have access to my friend. I lost control to having like a routine to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. Uh, so in the work that we do, because just for those people who don't know, Michelle and we didn't go at the same time, but we both became trained as coaches through the same methodology, which is a methodology called IPEC. And there's 7 levels of the way we show up. So would you, and the lowest, it's not lowest necessarily, but it's just the first place where people start to show up. The problematic places are victim and argue and sort of fighting. How much of you went into victim and fighting, or how much of that was already there before the accident? Did you it doesn't sound like you felt very victim before. You felt, you know, you got it controlled, you're rational, you're taking control, you're more was, but then all of a sudden this happened. And then what happens? Because one of the reasons why I'm asking is because stuff happens. And people who act a certain way, this for our listeners, I want you to hear, we go through life a certain way and then something happens. And then suddenly we feel like we're a victim, and we're entitled to the sympathy, we're entitled to the, and in some ways we are. This was a terrible thing that happened, right? And so it's 1,000% understandable that you would go into places like that. But I want the listener to think, as Michelle's talking, what happened for you in this space where you suddenly went from this carefree sort of person to suddenly something happened and you felt like a victim? Because we all have that happen.
I went entirely to the victim thinking. I was feeling sorry for myself. So I had a lot of that mixture of being angry and you know, why does this happen to me? And also being the victim thinking, why me? Like, of all the people, of all the siblings,
Yeah.
sibling, why does this happen to me? Why can't it happen to my friend who's coming up on the school on the same day, on the same time?
Right.
So
Right.
why does the universe have to do this to me?
Yeah.
And so I went right into that victim thinking. It happened to me, and
So which is so understandable. So play out that for people, because it's important for people. I just want them to feel the totality of it. So when you felt like, why does this happen to me? What were your answers? Was it that I'm not good enough? And this always happens to me. This wasn't right. How did you answer those questions you were asking? Not to
my
resolve them, but to go deeper into it, because I want people to get a sense of how their minds work as well, because this is the work you do with them, right? You take them into that place and something happens, and then they feel this victim or negativity, and then they just grow it.
yeah.
How did it grow for you?
after the car accident, that same day after the car accident, so I woke up. I don't remember at all how did it happen. I remember waking up, just being in the hospital, and I looked around. I saw my parents talking to the doctor, and there I was. I was bound. Basically, the doctor had wrapped me with plaster, all the way from my waist all the way to the ankle. So I was basically paralyzed, in the sense that it was bound, paralyzed from the waist down. And in that moment of time, it was really hard for me to, as an 11 years old,
Yeah.
it was really hard for me to understand what was going on, what would be the consequences, and what's going to happen to me in the future. I was actually really glad in that, in a brief moment of time when I got home. I was like, oh my God, there's no school. There's no school anymore. So I was really happy that I don't have to deal with school at work anymore. And now here I am, I'm home. I can do anything I want. And as I live every day I wake up, I'm bound, I'm trapped, and I'm sleeping in the bed. So my parents actually set up a bed in the living room for me so I can lay there and I don't have to climb stairs.
Yeah, of course.
So they were feeding on a lot of my the sense of entitlement, because they were feeding to me that, Michelle, because this has happened to you, I'm going to provide to you. And so I took it as, this is entitled to me because this happened to me, and therefore you need to service, you need to provide for me.
Yeah.
So I start jumping into that entitlement.
Yeah.
I feel entitled. I remember telling my sister, go pick up the cup for me on the other side. And so I start pointing, I start directing people what to do. And
Yeah.
that strong sense of entitlement start to develop.
Yeah. So what I just want to pause for a minute, and I want to ask the listeners to think about their own life here. Think about that place where you become a victim. Think about that situation. Michelle's is far more dramatic than most of us go through. And when you look at her, when you look at it, you see every reason in the whole world why that would be the case. Like, why wouldn't she? And it's not even like she shouldn't do this. I mean, of course she, like, yeah, she's 11-year-old kid, and she can't do what she used to be able to do. But in your case, not yours, in the listener's case, how do you see your life playing out in the same way, not with the dramaticness of the injury, but in the dramaticness of your own injury to yourself? And what is that causing you to change in your life, that if you just decided right now, today, because we live a life of choices, that you're not going to play that game anymore? You're not going to allow your bottom out to be the way you respond to life. How would that look for you? So let's go back to Michelle and here, because this is the story of her story, right? How long did that take for that to happen? I mean, and did you think it was ever going to happen? Did you feel like you were ever going to come out of this sort of pothole that you were in, of the worst thing in the world happened to me and I'm going to be pissed about it?
It went on and on for nearly my whole entire life,
Wow.
up until this point. So it happened from 11 years old all the way when I had my moment. I remember I was 40. So
Wow.
30 years of living in that space, of having that sense of entitlement, feeling sorry about myself, and feeling like the whole world is up and against me,
Yeah.
and feeling that I just stood out and people don't understand what I was going through.
Yeah.
30 years of that time. And it was just repetitive cycles of feeling bad about myself, and knowing that this is where I am. I was also angry to people. Like, you don't know me, so don't make comments about who I am to me. So I was
Guilty of that. That
ostracized.
happened for me. Right.
was
Uh,
oscillating, between the anger and being the victim. So I was oscillating between those two type of energy, and it was just so busy. I was so busy. My mind just kept going and circling around. Why is something not working? So I went and applied for a management position when I got into a hospital position, and I remember walking into the interview, and there's a panel of people interviewing me. I was sitting there, and I felt like they're not going to hire me because this is how I look. I'm short. I don't look like someone who's authority.
yeah.
What was I doing? What was I thinking about applying this position? They're not going to hire me. They're not going to give that position to me.
Wow.
So as I was doing the interviewing, and it's just an example of what was going through in my mind.
Yeah.
And this is just one example of going to the interview. There's relationship that I had I was playing the same mindset.
Yeah, of course.
He's not going to want me. He's not going to be wanting to be my boyfriend
Yeah.
because this is how I look. And of
Yeah.
course, he
Yeah.
just wants to be friend. So I was every single step, every single stages of my life as I was going through adolescence. I was going through my womanhood up until this point. Every single thing was against me,
Yeah.
or something that I couldn't do. I can't do it. When it comes to physical activity, I could never run. I can never hike. I can never jump up and down. Those are the things that kind of excluded me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I kept oscillating again in that victim, this is happening only to me, and I'm being angry because, the universe is just playing with me.
And there was no reason for it. It wasn't like you did anything wrong that this happened as a result of. So again, I know I keep asking you listeners to listen and to put yourself in her place, because her story, even though it's the story of her legs being taken from her from a car accident, is not any different than my story when I met my wife and I was overweight, and I said, why would you be interested in, she's 21 years younger than me. I said, why would you be interested in me? You're young and beautiful. I'm an old fat guy. Why would you be interested in me? And she said, no one's ever asked me why do I love them before. I love you because I love you. And the thing that hurt me, like in my heart hurt me when I read your story, was how this beautiful woman just didn't want to be seen, because you're a beautiful woman, and we all have something going on with us that's messed up, but you're a beautiful woman, and the more that, well, who was it that was really against you?
I think, do you want me to answer you from the perspective of then or now?
Well,
Because now
either.
it's a really different person.
Yeah, go now, because let's start to bring it to now. But when you look back, who was it that was really against you?
Me. I am against me.
Yeah. And so what changed? This is so key for listeners to hear, because the game that we play in life, for the most part, lives between this year and this year, right? It just is, we create the life, the world we imagine is the world we live in. And so as soon as that world changes, we start to live it, all of life changes. So what allowed you to, same situation, you can't use your legs the way you would like to. You still can't run, you still can't jump, you still can't go for hikes. But what changed that allowed you to say, I can have a different life here?
So I went through 30 years of that battle. I called it a battle because every day it was a battle. It was about waking up and showing up. And one day I suddenly woke up, and I was telling myself, I was still being angry with all the things that's going on. I
Yeah.
was angry. So I had a lot of anger because I couldn't participate. It was very specific too, because around me, my friends were talking about going to hike. They were talking about going to Machu Picchu. They were talking about, oh, how spiritual it is to hike, the Inca Trail.
Right.
And I was an outsider. I was sitting there and I couldn't participate in any of those conversations as they're describing it. I got really angry when I got home. And the next day when I woke up, I said, you know what? In order for me to participate in the conversation, I need to, number one, to start watching more sports channel. Number two, I need to figure out a way to somehow move my body so that I can actually participate in those conversations when they're talking about physical activity. So I went out to Target. I picked up one of those balancing ball, came home, sat on the ball. I start rocking. I'm like, even just a little bit would help.
Wow.
So I start rocking on the balancing ball. Then an idea came to my head. I said, well, okay, so if physical challenge is my challenge, maybe what I need to do is to challenge my physical challenge to see how far I can take it. And that was still very angry. And so I said, well, okay, so if the universe is playing against me, I'm gonna go and sign up to the gym and see what they can do for me. So I went to the gym. I went to a gym. I signed up as a member, and I actually hired myself a personal trainer. I don't know how he's going to be able to work with me, but since I'm paying you, you have to be doing something to me, right? It's again, it's an entitlement.
Right.
Entitlement. So I went in and then I said, look, this is who I am. This is how I look. This is what I'm capable of. What can you do for me? And then, so we start working. And after a couple of months, I had another idea. So the idea just came rolling in as I'm going through the process. And I had an idea that, okay, so the whole reason why I started to hire you is because I want to train my physical challenge. So why don't I set a goal to hike the Inca Trail?
Wow.
So, yeah. So September 2016, I hike Inca Trail 26 miles to the Machu Picchu site.
Wow. Wow. Congratulations. How fabulous.
Thank you. And it was something that I've never done before. It was scary. It was the fact that I have to book a ticket for myself and carry a luggage with my 2 crutches, figure out how to get to Peru and communicate with people. And it was all along the way of figuring out what to do at the time of challenge, at the time of crisis. And
so did you prepare yourself? I mean, surely you were preparing yourself in the gym for the walking part of it, but did you prepare yourself for the language, for the luggage, for the going by? You traveled by yourself or you traveled with somebody else?
I traveled by myself, and there was no preparation in terms of language or anything that might come up. So I was just there. I wanted to go. I wanted to go so bad because I want to participate in that conversation my friends have. I want to be able to come back and say, hey, I hike Inca Trail too, and this and that. I think this site is beautiful. I think that I want to be able to participate and fit into that conversation.
Yeah.
So my mind was set. I was determined. I was disciplining myself. Every single week, I'm going to show up to the gym. I'm going to exercise. This is what I'm going to do. And I was really determined to get onto Machu Picchu. And so when I booked the ticket, I didn't think about, it was scary, yes, for sure. But I didn't think about, what am I going to do when I get there, when I don't speak language.
Right.
And by the time I landed, answers came to me.
Yeah,
There's
of course.
Google Translate.
Of course, right. Totally. So if you can, I would really like to take a microscope to that moment where that change happened, where you got fed up with the fact that it's almost like your anger then became your friend because you got angry at yourself. You got angry at the situation and you said, screw this. I'm going to use my anger. I'm going to make it so that I can participate in those conversations. What changed? Because 2 minutes before that, you said, I just can't do that. What changed that made you say, I can't till I can?
I think what changed for me was I was sitting there and contemplating about my own life. I lived 40 years this way.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was sitting there contemplating my whole purpose. Like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What is the reason for my existence? If I'm here and I made it this far, I had a suicidal attempt when, years back when I was in that victim mode.
Of course.
If I had decided that this is the life I want to live, then what is it that I can do for people? Like, what is it I can do for myself? So I went on a journey of just thinking in a brief second. If we were to put it to a mini second,
Yeah.
that was what's going on in my mind. I was looking for answers.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and tell me if I'm not, it's almost as if a microsecond was responsible for a whole change of a macro life. And so for people who think that I have to do this lot of work, I mean, you did a lot of work, but there also, did you feel it was a grace? Did you feel there was a blessing? Did you feel it was a forgiveness of yourself? Like, what allowed that microsecond suddenly to come up? I remember being with Wayne Dyer years ago, and he said, and he was talking because I worked at Hay House, and I helped bring him to Hay House. And he said to a large group of people, because he was going bald, he said, I'll give you $1 million if you can tell me why this hair that was on my head yesterday was on my pillow this morning. Because I don't want to lose my hair, right? I mean, but it's something. Here's Wayne Dyer, like a well-respected man, and he's still thinking about like what one hair. You know, we all see that. Yeah. What was there a forgiveness that you gave yourself? Have you forgiven yourself still? Have you been okay with the fact that you were angry about it? Where do you sit now?
I think what the word came for me was acceptance. And I remember having conversation with my friend, and he kept encouraging me to move forward. And what suddenly came to me in that microsecond was acceptance. Accepting my situation, accepting this is the way I look. I will always look this way.
Yeah.
Accepting the fact that this physical limitation is a limitation for me.
Yeah.
Accepting the fact that I am not normal.
Yeah.
I am different.
Yeah.
And accepting the fact that there's a bigger picture of what needs to be done.
So have you been able to accept the fact that there's beauty in your difference?
Absolutely. I embrace and I appreciate, I am grateful for all the beauty that this tragedy had brought me. And it made me start to, I kind of see myself as a diamond. I know this is such a big ego talk now. I see myself as a diamond. When you first dig out the diamond, there's a lot of dust, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of impurity around the diamond. And every moment, this 30 years of life, I was undusting those dust around the diamond. I was refining it. And this right now, I'm holding the diamond in front of you, and I can tell you that this is beauty. I am beautiful.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. There's a friend of mine who is starting to work, and she wants to call it the straw that broke the camel's back, but to have it break the camel's back in the other direction. Like, we know the story of the straw that you put one piece of straw on and it breaks the camel because all of a sudden it's too heavy for him to hold. But how about if there was one piece of straw, just one tiny little piece of straw that broke our consciousness from thinking the way we used to think to the way we think now? And it's almost as if, from what I'm hearing you say, it's almost like as if there was this straw that just you were doing all this, but then it was a straw that broke the camel's back that leaned into this new understanding that you have, which is so beautiful.
And people tend to think that in order to triumph, in order to have this victory or coming out of or having that resilience, you have to do a lot of things. You have to overcome a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't. The fact is, it only takes one single thought, like
Love it.
one single moment.
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of work with a woman who says, you really don't have to do much of anything. You just have to let go of everything that you believe and let this new energy come in, and the new energy can do everything. And I really love that way of life.
Yeah.
I love our conversation, and I hope we'll have more of them down the line. And I want to ask you just a couple more questions, and then I want to give people a chance to get in touch with you and all that stuff. But what scares you most now moving forward?
What scares me the most would be sometimes I'm such a fearless person that I'm engaging in too many things that may have higher risk,
Yeah.
right? So I'm engaging strangers whom I have never speak before, and I'm engaging them in
Guilty.
And sometimes we know that, you know, there's people out there who are not in their right mind, right? So yeah. I've encountered a situation where, you know, I'm putting myself into a place where these people are actually very quite dangerous. So I'm fearful in the sense that I'm putting myself out there and there are people who's not in the right mind.
Yeah.
But
so
that's okay.
It is okay. Can I offer you one little piece?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I was just writing about this the other day. You know, in America, we have these supermarkets, and they have so many aisles. There are like 30 aisles. And it interests me because there was a person that I had a situation with. And it turned out that she and I lived in the same area, and I didn't even know it. And we would shop at the same market, but we would never see each other because she would be on different aisles that I was in, or she would come in at a slightly different time. And there's a way to elevate yourself above those places where if you just rise above that, those people will be there, but you'll never encounter them. They'll never come to you. They might find somebody else to do it, but they're not within the vibration of what you hold. And so it's almost impossible for them to find you. And you can reach out to them and say, hey, I want to open up the space for you to come in, but then that's your choice to do it. So I think the fearlessness of you is so powerful. I can't wait to see when you just unleash completely. I'm going to say something really weird here, and but you know I already have. I believe you have within you the capability and the power and the connection to something bigger. That the situation that you've accepted as always having to be what it is might not always have to be what it is. You friggin' walked to Machu Picchu. 2 years before that, you would have said, I never could do that. So what's 2 years away from now? What new possibilities are coming to you, right? And what new possibilities are coming to the listeners that are here? The beautiful thing about the mosaic, one of the things that I love about the image, is we're one piece away from an entirely new reality that we can't even see because we're surrounded by these pieces. But if we use those pieces or allow those pieces to carry us into the world that they're in touch with, suddenly we're doing things we never even dreamed possible before. So when you look out in the world now, is this the place you always dreamed that we would give over to future generations?
In a physical sense, no. because we look around, we're trashing the earth, we're trashing our environment, and I'm a big believer in climate change and how we human contribute to the damage that we see in the physical world.
Yeah, of course.
On a more conscious level, I believe that we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, perfect. So if you could give people one thing they could do in both of those situations that would help the world, that would help us lean into those conclusions a little bit better, what would be one thing people could do for their environment so that they don't feel so helpless? And what could be one thing people could do for the consciousness of the world to uplift it? What would you say to people?
I truly believe that how you act, how you behave, what you think, and how you feel is going to affect on a global level. So it has to go backwards, right? So we're looking at things from the external sense. We're looking from outside back in. What needs to change, that one thing, it has to be from the inside out.
Yeah.
So if we raise our own consciousness, if we raise our own energy, vibration, then everything that you do will matter to the person sitting next to you.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Michelle, is there something that you've wanted to say to the world that you've never had the opportunity to say, that you, given the opportunity right now, that I hold the space for you to say it, that you'd be brave enough to say it?
I really want to say, and I want to share this with everyone, is that you are a reservoir of love. And you have so much love to love yourself. And when you love yourself so much, more than enough, where that love is just pouring out of you and has nowhere else to go, this is your opportunity to share your love to others.
Yeah.
But in order to spread that love that the world needs, we need to start first learning how to love ourselves. And loving ourselves doesn't mean that, that you signed up to a spa, do more nail. Loving yourself means honoring yourself with your authenticity, with the connection that you have, and listen to what's being said in your heart.
Love it. You could be my spokesperson, because I'm a big, that's my whole message of listening. But I could be your spokesperson. How do people get in touch with you? Because I'm assuming a lot of what we talked about today is the work that you do one-on-one with people, or groups with people, or give presentations to corporations or schools, or wherever you speak. I know you do speaking and want to do more of it. How can people, is this what happens in sessions with you? And how can people get in touch with you to have that happen?
Yeah, I do public speaking, and people can find me on elevatelifecoaching.org, to my website, and that's how they can get hold of me and get contact with me.
Okay. So, and that will be in the show notes. Michelle, thank you for taking your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanking you for opening up to an imperfect stranger like myself, and just allowing ourselves to have this connection. And if I can summarize, I just want to take a moment and summarize for the people who listen all the time. I want you to listen to this podcast and listen to it again and again. I want you to hear how real and honest and open Michelle is with you. And I want you to hear this is not a perfect human being. She showed her anger. She showed her vulnerability. She showed, her victim feeling. And I want you to use her example as something that inspires you in your example, because most times there might be some of you who have a situation that happens to you that's more devastating than the one Michelle has. And all of us think the things that happen to us are the most devastating thing that could ever happen to us. I understand that. But her life took a radical shift. And I want you to see what's possible when one microsecond of thought changes. Where suddenly we think we can't do something and we say, now I'm going to prove to myself I can. Where we go from being, poor me, I'm entitled to everybody taking care of me, to no, I'm going to stand up and take care of myself. I'm going to do some of these things that I wanted other people to do because I want to do that. And I want to give to other people. It was interesting when I asked Michelle what changed. She didn't say I wanted to do it for me. She said that second. She said I wanted to help other people do something for themselves. What a beautiful frame of mind to be able to say, in a situation where most people would say, I just want to take care of myself and I want to get better. She didn't say that at first. She said, I want to help people get through these negative thoughts that they're having and the self-doubt and these things that keep holding us back from being the best that we can be. So if you're going through moments of doubt, if you're going through moments of judgment, if you're going through moments where you're putting yourself down all the time, if you're going through moments where you're making your life harder to live than it has to be, we all go through hard times. We don't have to make those hard times harder. We can make them easier by having microseconds of thought that changes everything. I want to really encourage you to go to elevatelifecoaching.org and see what Michelle has available to help you. This is a woman who is living her life by her example, not by her words. And her example is present in everything that she does. Thank you again, Michelle, for being with us. Thank you, listeners, for coming and being a part of it. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. Please rate it and review it on Apple Podcast. And take this moment from the time this podcast ends to the next moment where something begins, a micro moment, and allow your life to change in that 1 second. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.